Something is about to break open, not gradually, not in the slow, incremental way that most significant things develop in the ordinary texture of daily life. In the specific, sudden, cannot be undone way that a single moment sometimes changes everything that comes after it, the way a particular conversation or a particular look or a particular thing finally being said out loud makes the landscape of the relationship permanently different from how it was before that moment existed. That kind of moment is approaching you. And I want to be clear about what I mean by not ready, because the title of this reading deserves more than the dramatic framing it implies. You are not unready in the sense of being unprepared or underdeveloped or unable to handle what is coming. You are not ready in the much more specific sense that no one is ever fully ready for the moments that matter most, the moments where something they have been carrying privately finally becomes mutual, where something that existed in the interior of one person's experience makes the crossing into the shared space between two people and changes what is possible there. You cannot fully prepare for those moments. They require a quality of genuine presence in the instant that preparation cannot manufacture. What I want to offer you in this reading is not preparation. It is the specific kind of clarity about what is approaching that allows you to be fully, genuinely in the moment when it arrives, rather than slightly behind it, processing what just happened while it is still happening. Let me show you what the cards revealed. Let me describe what I felt the moment I opened this energy, because the impression arrived instantly and with a quality I do not encounter in most readings. I felt electricity. Not metaphorical electricity, the actual physical sensation of charged air, the quality of a space where something significant is imminent, where the conditions for something have been building for long enough that the atmosphere itself has changed in response. The specific way the air feels before lightning, when the charge has been accumulating and the discharge has not yet happened, but everything in the environment is already oriented toward the moment of it. That is the quality of what is approaching for you. Something that has been building in the charged space between you and someone else, accumulating without finding its moment of release, and that is now approaching exactly that moment. I also felt something underneath the electricity that I want to name because it is the more important of the two impressions. I felt inevitability. The specific, settled, has always been going to happen quality of something that is not a surprise to the deeper intelligence of the situation, even if it arrives as a surprise to the conscious, daily life level of both people involved. This has been building toward this moment, not accidentally, with the specific directional intelligence of something that knows where it is going, even when the people inside it do not. The first card in this reading arrived in the position representing what has been building toward tonight, the accumulation of energy and feeling and unspoken things that has been moving toward this specific threshold. And I want to describe it carefully because its imagery is precise. This card shows two cups extended toward each other, held by two figures facing one another, with a winged figure between them and a lion's head above the scene. The imagery of genuine, mutual, deeply felt recognition between two people who have encountered something in each other that answers a specific need or longing they have been carrying. This is the card of connection in one of its most complete and most recognized forms, of two people who have seen each other in the specific way that genuine seeing occurs between people who are genuinely compatible. What I am reading in this card about what has been building toward tonight is something I want to name specifically. What exists between you and this person has been building in the specific register of genuine emotional recognition, the territory where two people's actual interior worlds have been making contact beneath the surface of whatever has been happening in the visible dimension of your interaction. Something real has been developing in that territory, something that both of you have been aware of in the specific way that people are aware of things. They have not yet found the right moment or the right courage to name directly. Tonight is the moment. I also want to speak to the water element of this card because it governs the emotional world and the genuine interior life, and it is telling me something specific about the quality of what has been building. This is not surface attraction or social compatibility or the pleasant warmth of two people who get along well. This is something operating at the level of genuine feeling, at the depth where the things we actually care about and the people we actually want live, where the things that are real for us rather than simply appealing to us reside. What is between you is in that register, and what is about to happen is in that register. I also want to speak to something about the winged figure in this card because it carries specific meaning in the context of tonight. This figure, hovering between the two cups as they reach toward each other, represents the quality of something larger than the personal moment presiding over the recognition. What is between you has a quality that extends beyond the simply pleasant or the merely romantic. There is something about this specific connection, this specific recognition, that carries the quality of the specifically right rather than the generally good. The moment that breaks open tonight is not arbitrary. It is the natural expression of something that has always been specifically oriented toward this. The second card arrived in the position representing the specific moment that is approaching, what actually happens tonight. And I want to describe this card with the full attention it deserves because it is the heart of this reading. This card shows a great trumpet sounding from above, a landscape with figures rising from the ground in response, arms extended upward, the quality of something that cannot be ignored once it has sounded, something that announces itself with a completeness that leaves no ambiguity about whether it has been heard. This is the card of genuine, significant, irrevocable declaration of something crossing from the interior into the shared space between people in a way that cannot be called back or qualified into something softer once it has been fully expressed. What I am sensing this card is describing about what approaches is not subtle. It is not the tentative, could be interpreted multiple ways kind of moment. It is the kind where someone, one or both of you, finds themselves in the position of saying something that is fully, clearly, unmistakably what it is, with the specific quality of a declaration that has been forming for long enough that it has reached the point of needing to be said more than it needs the protection of being kept private. I also want to speak to the number of this card because it carries something about the finality and the completeness of what is approaching. This card sits in the sequence of major forces at a position that represents genuine reckoning, the specific kind that produces real change rather than the kind that is acknowledged and set aside. What happens tonight does not belong to the category of things that can be processed and returned to some previous configuration. It belongs to the category of things that reorganize the landscape permanently in the direction of what is actually true between you. Does this feel like it is describing a situation that is genuinely in motion, Virgo? A specific person and a specific quality of unspoken accumulation that is building toward exactly this kind of tipping point? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what this is landing on. The third card arrived in the position I read as the specific quality of feeling that is driving what is about to happen. the interior engine behind the moment that is approaching. And I want to describe it with genuine warmth because it is one of the most beautiful cards in the entire deck for this kind of reading. This card shows a figure alone in a lush, abundant garden, surrounded by the fullness of cups in their fullest possible expression, with the quality of someone who has found themselves in the specific, slightly disoriented recognition of having more than they expected, of being in the presence of something richer and more beautiful than the ordinary texture of daily life usually offers. This is the card of genuine, abundant, slightly overwhelming emotional richness, of feeling in its fullest and most complete form. What I am reading in this card about what is driving the moment that is approaching is something I want to say with care. The feeling on the other side of tonight is genuine, not strategically generated, not partially real, not the presented version of something that has a different quality underneath. The feeling is what it appears to be, and it is larger than either of you has fully allowed yourselves to acknowledge, larger than what has been expressed in the ordinary course of things, larger in a way that has been creating the specific pressure that makes tonight's moment inevitable rather than optional. I also want to speak to the specific number of this card because it sits at the position of fulfilled desire, of what it feels like when what you actually wanted turns out to be what you actually have. What I am sensing in this card is that what breaks open tonight is going to produce, in the moment of its breaking, the specific experience of recognition, of something snapping into clarity, of two people understanding simultaneously that what they have been carrying separately has been the same thing all along. Inhale with me, Virgo, because the fourth card is the one that speaks most directly to what you need to bring with you into this moment, and I want you to receive it fully. This card shows a young figure at the very beginning of their suit, a page or messenger, in the quality of someone whose attention is fully on what is in front of them, who is entirely present to this specific moment rather than divided between the moment and all of the possible interpretations and consequences of the moment. The air element of this suit speaks to clarity and communication and the quality of presence that allows real connection rather than the managed version of it. What I am sensing this card is asking of you for tonight is something I want to say simply. Be present. Be in the actual moment rather than slightly above or behind it, processing it as it happens. Let yourself be surprised. Let yourself feel the full quality of what is actually occurring rather than immediately translating it into the most accurate possible assessment of its significance and implications. I also want to speak to the specific quality of the air element in this card in the context of what is approaching. The air governs communication, and what this card is pointing toward for your role in tonight is the quality of someone who is willing to be in genuine communication rather than in the managed version of it. To say what is actually true rather than what is strategically wise. To respond to what is genuinely happening rather than to a carefully considered interpretation of it. The moment that is coming does not want the managed Virgo. It wants the actual present, fully arrived in this specific moment, Virgo. That version of you is the one this moment has been building toward. I want to address something specifically about tonight's energy, because Virgo's relationship with the unexpected and the emotionally significant tends to have a particular texture that is worth naming before the moment rather than only after. When something big happens, when something that has been building finally breaks open in the way this reading is describing. The first thing that tends to happen in Virgo's experience is a moment of complete internal stillness, followed by the activation of every analytical process simultaneously. The moment of genuine surprise before the assessment begins, before the cataloging of evidence and the consideration of implications and the weighing of everything the moment might mean, is brief, very brief. And then the mind arrives and begins its work. I want to ask you something, and I want you to hold the question rather than answering it now. When the mind arrives tonight, can you give the moment a little more time before you fully hand it over? Can you stay in the stillness for a few more seconds than feels natural in the actual felt quality of what is happening before the processing begins? Not because the processing is wrong, it is never wrong, but because some moments deserve to be fully felt before they are fully understood, and tonight is one of those moments. The understanding will come. Your mind is excellent at understanding. What is harder to recapture is the pure, unprocessed quality of being in a moment before interpretation has organized it into something that can be held at the analytical distance required for careful assessment. Be in it first. Understand it after. You will lose nothing by being in it first. I also want to name something about what the mind tends to do in moments that matter in a romantic or deeply personal context, because I think being aware of it in advance makes it slightly easier to navigate in the instant. The mind, encountering something significant and unexpected, often reaches immediately for the question of what this means for the future, what this commits you to, what responding fully in this moment implies about the shape of things going forward. That orientation toward implication is useful in many contexts. In this particular moment, it is going to pull you slightly out of the present and into a future that does not yet exist. And the cost of that pull is a fraction of the actual experience of what is happening right now. Stay in the now of it for slightly longer than your mind wants you to. The future will still be there when you arrive at it. This specific moment will only be here once. The fifth card arrived in the position of what tonight opens into, what becomes possible in the landscape that exists on the other side of the moment that is approaching. And it is a card I want to describe with genuine warmth, because what it is pointing toward is genuinely, specifically good. This card shows the sun blazing in full, unqualified radiance, a figure moving freely beneath it with the quality of someone who has moved into a condition of complete, uncomplicated aliveness, where nothing is hidden and nothing needs to be, because the light is complete and everything it touches is exactly what it is. This is the card of clarity so complete that it becomes joy, of warmth so unambiguous that it becomes a physical sensation rather than an emotion, of something being fully expressed and fully received in a way that leaves no residue of ambiguity or incompleteness. What I am sensing this card is describing for what tonight opens into is something I want to say directly and without softening. A period of the specific, rare, genuinely aliveness of two people who have finally stopped protecting themselves from the full experience of what is between them and who are now simply in it together with the specific quality of presence that tends to arrive when the thing that was being kept private has been brought into the shared space and both people are standing in the light of it together. That quality of aliveness is the specific inheritance of the moment that breaks open tonight, not as a permanent, uninterrupted state, as the natural register of the period you are entering, the default quality of your days rather than the exceptional quality of the best ones. I also want to speak to something about the figure in this card and what their specific quality of movement tells me about the experience that follows tonight. The figure is not standing still in the brightness. They are moving forward with a quality of freedom that is specific to someone who has been released from something that was previously constraining their movement without them fully realizing how much of their energy was going toward managing the constraint. The specific kind of freedom that comes when something that was held privately is finally shared is different from the freedom of having never had the constraint in the first place. It is warmer, more embodied, more consciously felt because its contrast with what came before makes it vivid in a way that permanent ease cannot be vivid. That is the quality of what tonight initiates. And it is worth the full, genuine, unhesitating presence that arriving in this moment requires. Before I close, I want to say something about the nature of what not ready actually means in this context, because I think the phrase deserves more than the dramatic reading it tends to receive. Not ready does not mean inadequate or overwhelmed or at a disadvantage in this moment. It means genuinely surprised. It means arrived at by a moment rather than having arrived at a moment. It means the specific quality of being in the present tense of something significant rather than having had time to pre-process it into something less immediate. The best moments tend to have that quality. The moments that matter most tend to arrive when we are genuinely in our ordinary lives rather than standing at attention waiting for them. And the specific gift of arriving at a moment unprepared is that the response it draws from you is your genuine response rather than the one you would have crafted if you had seen it coming. Tonight is going to draw your genuine response, not the Virgo who has assessed the situation from every angle and determined the optimal approach. The Virgo who is simply, fully, actually present to what is happening in real time and who responds from exactly that presence. That Virgo, the unrehearsed, fully arrived, genuinely in this moment version of you is the most beautiful version, and tonight is going to call them forward. Be ready in the only way that matters, by being fully there. If this reading arrived with an electricity you felt in your body as you received it, please share it with a Virgo who might be standing at the edge of their own charged moment and who needs to hear that not being fully ready is sometimes exactly the right way to arrive, and leave a comment. I want to hear what this sparked in you and who this reading brought to the front of your mind. I read every single comment and I hold what is shared in this space with genuine care long after this video ends. Until next time, Virgo, something is about to break open. You are not fully ready. That is the only way to arrive at the things that matter. Be there fully when it happens, because it is happening.